Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Good afternoon, evening, and even for some people, morning. It's that wonderful time again, and don't worry, it's a new ship, we're working out the bugs, we're still on a shakedown cruise. Yes, it is I, the sometimes fearless leader of this, and no, I'm not going to pull an Ahab on this one, although, you know what, if certain people piss me off enough, it just might seem that way. Yes, for those who haven't quite caught all the references, we are talking Star Trek First Contact, the last of the best of the prime timeline Star Trek movies. So, why not go out with a bang, have some fun, and actually go through it, and hey, we got a new ship to break in. So, while we go through and actually get things trimmed back the way they should be. No, that's not the image I want to trim. That's the one that I want to trim down. Whee! Now let's get a beautiful look of that eye. Because, you know what? Say what you want about Sir Patrick Stewart. He knows what to do when it comes to working the camera.
And not overworking it like other captains in the franchise.
Wait, who would that have been?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Did you guys ever listen to William Shatner's spoken word albums?
I heard his rendition of Rocket Man.
Yeah, you should hear. He has one of Spirit in the Sky. It's exactly what you think it is.
Thank you for the reminder, Anamorphic Mind. Thank you. He asked, "Can you show us on the doll where the where they touched your brain from my test yesterday?"
That
I've been tested 3 times, and I'll have to say that was the most pleasant.
So I assume you're talking about coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm getting a test on Monday as well. Apparently, it's not normal that one testicle is bigger than the other two.
Let it sink in. Let it sink in. There's the joke.
well, it could be. We could also pull a Austin Powers reference. Oh, got me in the balls. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're good. All right. So, for those who are somehow absent and forget where we actually left off with the storyline combining the movie franchise with the actual television series, TNG, the Enterprise D has completed its run on the television series and then was unceremoniously left out in a dumpster and set ablaze in their first attempt at a feature film, which had all sorts of wonderful production and writing issues. So, this is TNG's version of Wrath of Khan. Yeah, there's really no way around it. They actually did follow a similar premise. Hey, let's take a bad guy from the series that everyone loved to hate kind of thing, and let's beef him up for the big screen. And they actually did it quite well.
Very well.
Although I would say there's one error that they made in sticking to the true nature of the Borg. And we'll get to that as we go further along, as we dive into this wonderful story. So let's remember, changes from the series that took place. The Enterprise D destroyed and unsalvageable. For those who have been watching the television series, Worf is now not part of the crew. He has taken a position at Deep Space Nine and de facto occasional commander of the USS Pimp Hand, otherwise known as the Defiant. And Data went through with the installment of the emotions chip, which then proceeded to fuse to his neural net. So, even if he wanted to get rid of him, sorry Data, you're kinda screwed.
Well, let's be honest, this is not the last time that the Data is getting screwed in this movie.
And the accuracy of his timekeeping comes into play on that one. So, as we begin the movie, we get one of the better instrumental intros. If actually, I would say the best one of the TNG run movies, which is on par with the top tier ones from the TOS era. And we end up with this stark, supremely close up of Jean-Luc Picard's eye, and then it scales back.
Yeah, well, it's a zoom. Was it a scale back or a zoom in? Yep, sorry, yeah, scale back. And we see that he's still in the old classic uniform. So from when he was Locutus, and I've got to give it to the opening sequence of this movie. They start fast. It's not a slow boil.
They start fast and hit hard, and zoom back to show just how vast and overwhelming the inside of a Borg cube is, and then you're getting flashbacks of the time as Locutus, his assimilation process. I will give them this, too. They were actually able to recreate, in a more highly detailed manner, the visuals of Picard as Locutus of Borg.
And then suddenly we jump out and see that Picard is not having a daydream. Well, he is having a daydream. But it shockingly awakens him. Gets up and walks around his office, and...
Oh, you got the same screenshot. He walks over to his sink to wash his hands and kind of wash off that shock of that dream that he was just a part of, and you see something wriggling under his skin, and then that pops out, and
boom,
immediate cut to where he's actually in his ready room with an incoming communique from Starfleet Command.
This is Trekception.
It really is, and it was well done and paced in such a way that, just as shocking as it was intended to be conveyed for Picard, is how it came off for the audience. It's like, whoa, we're diving right into the Borg history. Okay, we know it's where we're going with this, with the bad guy, and then it's just punch, punch, punch. Hey, message from Starfleet. It's like, no, we're not going to give you a chance to sit back and enjoy the moment.
So let me get over to the script. So Jean-Luc gets a communique from Admiral Hayes, lets him know that they've just received a report from Deep Space 5. Their colony on Evor Prime has been destroyed by the Borg.
And Picard, cutting him off, already knows who's at fault.
Yep. And then we go into the captain's log. And there are so many quotable lines in this that I absolutely love. It's the script writers on this particular movie were amazing. And in his captain's log, the moment I've dreaded for nearly 6 years has finally arrived. The Borg, our most lethal enemy, have begun an invasion of the Federation. And this time, there may be no stopping them.
So,
But let's be honest, Picard wrote the same thing when he heard that Roxana Troy would be visiting the D.
Oh, especially when she was going through what for a human female would have been menopause, but apparently the Beta Zeds have it backwards. Yeah. So for those who can't tell, yes, my image is in the same uniform as we see Picard here. Yep. Part of why Picard is so pessimistic about if the Borg actually did intend to invade right now in the way that they appear to be, we're in the middle or just before. We're in the middle towards the end of the Dominion War. So the Federation, yes, because keep in mind a lot of the Dominion War arc, actually started just before this uniform came about on DS9, and the hostilities end up starting right. The major hostilities kind of coincide with First Contact. That's where there is a lot of that overlap in that background play of what's going on when you
I'm pretty sure that it was time-wise rather than the beginning of the Dominion War.
Well, keep in mind.
Looking at trying to find the star date of the Dominion War. I don't have star dates. I have Earth dates. And I don't have a star date calculator.
Well, what's the Earth date that you have for it? Is it air date?
Dominion War should have been between 2373 and 2375.
The movie credits that I have a star date for the movie as 5893.5. Does somebody have their Star Trek calculator going?
Yeah, pulling it up now. I gotta love this. Casualties and losses, heavy.
So, from here, carry on for just a second. We get the first shot of the exterior of the Enterprise E, and I'll have to... Again, I'm going to praise the crap out of this movie. They had just enough CGI that it wasn't a character in and of itself.
Yes.
I'm actually not sure whether this is a CGI shot. I know
the background.
That I know that they had a physical model of the E for the first movie, and the later two ones they used CGI all the way. So I'm not able to tell on whether that's the CGI model or the physical one.
It's a physical. It is the physical model, but look at the blending between the physical model and the background. The background is painted in CGI.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I checked it out. This movie takes place in 2373, so it's at the beginning of the Dominion War.
Yeah. So the graphics, whether CGI or real effect or practical, was just enough to add to the movie, but not become a character of its own like it had in previous movies. And it was most of them are gorgeous. There are a couple here and there that are not quite.
Yeah.
Go into the captain's ready room, and they start having conversation about what's going on. State that there's only one ship that is currently attacking the Earth, and Data immediately chimes in at maximum warp. They can be there in 3 hours and 25 minutes. And Picard breaks it to them that they will not be joining the battle.
Rather abruptly, yeah, we're not going. To which everyone starts asking, why? Do they think the ship needs more shakedown time? As LaForge even says that the ship we've been out in space for nearly a year now. We're ready. The Enterprise E is the most advanced ship in the fleet. We should be on the front line.
Yeah, but the quantum torpedoes don't even arrive until Tuesday.
So their orders are to patrol the neutral zone, because just in case the Romulans decide this would be a good time to attack.
And the reason that was all but given?
Yeah, wasn't discussed there, but the reason for it is the captain. Then we cut into Picard's quarters, where he is listening to some classical music extremely loud.
So much so, it's shaking the loose pads on his desk.
I didn't get a screenshot of it, but it is a little bit creepy when Riker just suddenly appears in this reflection.
So why the fuck is there a reflection there? Is it actually glass? I thought that this was, force fields.
Oh, good catch, Geo.
Oh, well, hang on. Some of the windows like that, are they force fields or are they transparent aluminum? A transparent metal?
I'm pretty sure that this is the exact same window that Picard later used.
To show.
Was that?
Nope.
Was it on the deck below in the mess hall?
No. The where he points out how high above the Earth they are.
Where he touches the force field to demonstrate it.
Yeah, he opens.
That's in a different room.
Yeah, that's down in the secondary hall.
God damn it.
Yeah, I know I have a screenshot of that a little bit later, and that is a downward facing window. It's below shoulder height.
Okay.
But while in here, Riker comes, and that's where they have the conversation where Picard confirms that, let's just say that Starfleet has every confidence in the Enterprise and her crew. They're just not sure about her captain.
They believe that a man who was once captured and assimilated by the Borg should not be put in a situation where he would face them again. To do so would introduce an unstable element to a critical situation. Yeah.
How many other unstable elements are there already on that crew?
Yes.
Yeah, there'd be quite a few of them. Which then, as the conversation continues, Troy pipes in on the intercom. Bridge to Captain Picard. Go ahead. We've just received word from the fleet. They've engaged the Borg.
So we enter the bridge, and this is the first time that we've gotten a good look at this new bridge. We don't have the arc, the I don't know, what would you call that? The display panel behind the captain's chair where Worf stood before.
Oh, it was the arch, the tactical station, which now tactical is the station directly behind Riker. Yes, this goes into design philosophy. As you're looking at the bridge, you're getting more of the sense of a much more militaristic and less diplomatic in the arrangement of your main command center. You have the captain in a center point who can view the main critical adjacent stations directly to his sides, and also have that peek at the helm and operations directly ahead, which then, of course, the view screen in front of that. Now, as they get to the bridge, Picard orders a Starfleet frequency to be put over comms and played over the speaker, where we are now listening in to the fleet communications as they are engaging the Borg ship at the Typhon sector.
And as they start listening in, you can hear all kinds of chaos in the background, and they list off several of the ships that are in the area, to include the Endeavor, the Defiant, the Bozeman, and chaos, we would just say. Chaos of the battle that's happening.
And throughout this, you just get that sense of, this is not going to go well. This is not going to go anywhere near how they thought it was going to. At which point...
At which point, Picard reaches down, grabs his balls, and realizes that I'm going to defy my orders, and gives the command to... What exactly is his... set course for Earth. Maximum warp. And he tells the crew, I'm about to commit a violation of our orders. Any of you who wish to object should do so now. It will be noted in the log.
And then Data delivers that awesome line that everybody knows. If I were human, I would perhaps say, go to hell. If I were human.
Oh, no, you're in the wrong movie. You're on the wrong movie, Gato.
That was okay. I'm just saying that it was kind of similar.
Very similar. Sure. Captain, I believe I speak for everyone here when I say, to hell with our orders.
And there's the shot. So we jump to light speed, or to warp, and I didn't quite catch the streak. And the next shot, it starts out slightly serene. It is a calm and casual Borg cube.
Just slowly making its way towards Earth, and then they introduce the chaos.
And here we get our first shot of the Defiant.
I think, you get shots of the Defiant going through, doing what it was actually intended to do. Fight the Borg. And of all the ships there... Hell. Oh yeah, out of all the ships there, it actually, even though it has been hit a number of times, as you can tell, it is still in the fight.
That's true, but on the other hand, most of the other ships are a century-old Miranda-class vessels. So what do you expect?
Then we see Mr. Worf in a fairly dire situation. He's told that they've lost their shields and all their weapons are gone. And as a proud Klingon, declares perhaps today is a good day to die. And what any valiant warrior would do, prepare for ramming speed.
Sir, there's another starship coming in. It's the Enterprise. Which they actually did cut out a line from the original script where Worf almost seems disappointed.
Really?
Yeah, he pretty much retracts the today is a good day to die with I'll have to find it, but I remember coming across that years ago.
So the Enterprise arrives, joins the battle.
Can we talk about the fact that the proportions don't work whatsoever in the screenshot before? The Defiant is way too small compared to the Enterprise.
It's all perspective.
Size differences.
Well, if you compare how big it looks when it's stuck to Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine is a fucking kilometer in diameter. And the E is what, like 700 meters long? The Defiant looks way too small in this.
Yeah, I think DS9 is the one that actually had the scaling issues. Because the Defiant is only, what, 4 or 5 decks tall?
Yeah, and it's only got a crew of what, like 10?
Yes, but even then, compared to the captain's shuttle,
it still doesn't fit. Yeah, that's where the Defiant should look slightly larger than it does in comparison. But at the same time, they kind of wanted... There was an aesthetic that they were going after.
Yeah, they were trying to show that the Enterprise E is pretty much overmighty compared to whatever ships are currently surrounding the Borg cube. And Gregor, to answer your question, it was in the beginning of the Dominion War, the first of the 3 years.
So the Enterprise arrives, beams over all of the surviving crew from the Defiant, and begins to engage in the fray. Picard issues orders for the entire... Actually, before that, we even discussed this a couple of weeks ago on VTW, where Picard took command of the fleet.
Yeah.
Because the Admiral's ship had been destroyed. So Picard takes command of the fleet, instructs all of the ships to target weapons at a specific set of coordinates, and Data corrects him, or not corrects him, but says those coordinates don't seem to be any vital systems. And Picard just tells him, trust me. So the entire fleet gets prepared to engage and unloads into one specific spot. And we get a lot of good shots of the various other ships in this area. And again, just the right amount of special effects.
Well, and right here we actually get a view of the 3 main new ships that were designed in conjunction with this movie. And I'm surprised a couple of them they did not use going forward in DS9, but one of them they did.
Well, we have the Akira class here, which is kind of obviously reappearing all the time in DS9 is pretty much the replacement of the Miranda class when it comes to being shot on screen.
Yeah, and then we
the
have
other one
the
on the
Steam
left,
Runner.
I cannot actually... What?
That's the Steam Runner.
Is it?
Yep.
Could be, yeah.
And then as part of that, as everyone's shooting at one spot on the ship, you can see that they're clearly having damage to the Borg cube. A mysterious orb is ejected from the cube. And in the background, the cube heads towards, or the sphere heads towards the Earth, and the cube is destroyed.
I'm just wondering, since they have a cube and a sphere, do they also have a pentagonal dodecahedron?
Oh, that's back at Unimatrix 1.
Oh yeah, could be. Actually, no, that's an icosahedron.
I just want to know if the Borg have the same issue that we do, that they have, flat shippers. That's not a spherical ship, it's flat.
Don't make me hurt you.
I'm wondering if in the Star Trek universe there's a flat Mars society.
There just might be. We may never know. And part of me doesn't want to know.
There needs to be an episode somewhere someday about a flat Earth group on a planet that the Enterprise crew or somebody has to, mentally battle. It's like, no, seriously, we'll take you up on our ship. I swear, it's not flat.
And then it just turns out that this was a colony on Archer 4 that had those psychedelic mushroom particles in the atmosphere, which would explain a lot.
So as they begin the chase of the sphere, a guest has arrived on board the bridge.
Yeah, seriously, that's super weird. What the fuck is Dr. Crusher doing there?
Well, she has to do arguably the worst job on the ship, but someone has to do it.
Try to take care of the Klingon?
Repeating the computer?
See, he got it. You missed it, Furball. But yes, the worst patient to have ever. Another doctor. No, wait, a Klingon.
And I don't think that I got any of the shots of it when they welcome Worf on board, and Again, I love the writers of this movie. Thank you, sir. And he asked the Defiant. Picard's response is, it's adrift but salvageable. And Riker,
Tough
little ship.
Little.
And he says the same. He says the same thing that his clone twin brother said a few years earlier on Deep Space Nine, when he kidnapped the Defiant.
Little.
Well, tough little ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So, Worf takes up station at...
There is another barb, too. Mr. Worf, we could use some help at tactical.
Oh, yeah.
You do remember how to fire phasers.
So, they begin pursuit of the sphere, trapped in a wake of some sorts, and they see that they are going through a temporal vortex, and the Earth has changed. Population, approximately 9 billion. All Borg.
And they immediately postulate, well, wait a minute. If they did it in the past, why are we still here? The temporal wake must have somehow protected us from the changes in the timeline.
Also, can we kind of point out that 9 billion people is actually quite low?
We're at 7 right now, a little over.
We had almost 8, and we're heading for 12 in the next 50 years.
Well, the Borg are better at resource management than we are.
Now, but also remember how many humans would have been on the planet at the time of first contact, because they had just had, well, no, there was 600 million died.
Oh yeah, shit! I forgot about the Great Third World War. Yeah.
Well, and that's where I'm actually trying to find it, because Riker actually mentioned it, but I'm not seeing it here.
I think all he quoted was how many died, not how many survived.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you could extrapolate even just from a rudimentary estimate of, let's call it 10 billion, and then how... Nah, his numbers are off, because I think... Yeah, because he only called out 600 million dead. It was probably 600 million left alive. Because it was supposed to be like a near extinction level event of the fallout from World War III as it's been characterized elsewhere in Trek. So, you know what? This is where not every Starfleet officer is a historian who talks accurately. But Riker does make a salient point on it. It makes sense. Most of the major cities have been destroyed. There are few governments left. No resistance.
But, well, there's just a little bit of a hole in Borg philosophy. Why do they need to keep take the part of least resistance if resistance is futile anyways?
Oh, there are not many gripes that I have to this movie, but that is one of them. What would be the benefit of assimilating humanity prior to their technological advancements that got your attention in the first place?
Also, did the Borg in this movie know about what would happen regarding species 8472 in the Delta Quadrant, where they kind of needed humanity's assistance?
True.
Like, wouldn't they shoot themselves in the artificial foot if they assimilated humanity here, thereby preventing them from creating the modified nanodrones in the future?
Yeah, for a creature that is going to be introduced to us here in a little bit, that scoffs at Picard for being such a small creature, thinking in such three-dimensional terms, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there, sweet cheeks.
Yeah, but I mean, we should talk about Lily later.
So we get through the vortex, and the next thing we see is a nice tiny little encampment. Not sure what's going on here. See people drinking at a bar like good Americans do. Wander outside and look up in the sky. What's that?
Lily notices something, and an obviously inebriated man answers,
That's the constellation Leo.
Yeah. No, not that. That!
Followed by...
And they think they are being attacked by their closest proximity rival, the Econ, the Eastern Coalition.
Wait, is
As
that Eastern in terms of Eastern Asia or Eastern in terms of Eastern United States?
They don't go into it. That is one thing. It is buried somewhere in the beta lore, but there's no actual canon explanation of how the factions post-eugenic wars and post-World War III actually were laid out. Just that it was very disorganized and a lot of death.
The only thing we know is that there was a European hegemony.
Yep. So, it was probably Eastern U.S. or Eastern Americas. Because keep in mind, most of South America is east of the central United States.
Wouldn't this be an interesting timeline for development for a series? Has nothing to do with space, but...
I've proposed that before. A Star Trek series either happening before or directly after First Contact.
Yeah, that would be excellent.
Well, they kind of tried it with Enterprise. Yes, it was 100 years after First Contact, but they tried it, which actually, at this point, since we're at this moment in the movie, this here is a divergent point between multiple timelines. The show we get in Enterprise, the reason why we have the visual and technological disparities that we see in Enterprise versus what was talked about historically in the original series is because of this moment here. We have a divergence from the actual prime timeline to the events that end up taking place from this movie going forward, which, in my view, includes Enterprise, Discovery, and Star Trek Picard.
How much has that been canonized or theorized on? Or is it just kind of left out there?
It's left out there. There has not been anything hardline actually said confirming or denying it from the creative side of it, but it is a growing sentiment amongst reviewers and viewers and fans of the IP who actually do take a look at this stuff, because there was a way that they could have done a prequel, a pre-TOS series with today's technology and still made it visually in line with the original series. Prelude to Kanar. But because of other fuckery and shenanigans in the background at the higher levels of the executive offices, they were demanding too many changes, both visually and stylistically, to try to maintain and grow the audience. And with that, where they ended up going fits more in line with this being a divergent point than anything else. Because keep in mind, in Star Trek Enterprise, we get an episode where they are back on Earth, and there are researchers. Was it at North or South Pole? I think it was South Pole.
North Pole.
North Pole?
It was Alaska or Greenland or something like that. I'm pretty sure it was North Pole.
Yeah, where they discovered wreckage from this Borg sphere with a couple drones, and almost completely fucked the world because of it.
It just says Arctic, but yes, it's North Pole.
Well, Arctic, then yeah, Arctic Circle, which from here would make more sense that it would end up landing Langways up towards that way in the grand scheme of things. So
later on in the movie, I've got another comment about contamination of the timeline that may be able to be clarified or dropped in. But so to continue on, we've got the sphere trying to destroy this unknown site that we have not been informed of yet, and then the ship destroying it. Yep, and I'm not on the right screen. There we go.
The only
Boom.
thing that the satellites down on Earth fear is sphere itself.
So at this point is when Picard somewhat realizes what's going on, when they said that the impacts were in an area in Montana, and Picard demands he has to know what date is it.
Yeah, a missile complex in central Montana. A missile complex. The date, Mr. Data, I need to know the exact date.
April 4th, 2063.
The day
And
before first contact.
Then the missile complex must be the one where Zefram Cochrane built his warp ship. And this is, at this point, this is one thing that I kind of love, that this trickles over into real life. At this point in the storyline, we all know who Zefram Cochrane is. We know a general history of him. And
Well,
from
we
the
even
initial...
saw him in an episode. He had
From
been
the initial...
an episode of TOS.
Yeah. But he's a hero. He is a visionary. He is a scientist. He is someone to be looked up to.
He is the mythical figure that made all of what they are doing possible.
And we're about to find out how wrong they are.
Isn't that often the case, though?
That's why you should never meet your heroes.
Yep.
And
That means no to Jared, never travel back to 1944.
But it would have been fun to see him at the end.
so we identify the date. The crew decide they have to go down and assess the damage, so they throw on some old garb and go down and check. And the first thing they go into is the missile complex. And you can see there's a lot of damage in the missile complex, and there's a lot of death. So we have already drastically tainted the timeline. And there's no fixing this, regardless.
Well, if you want to get into temporal mechanics and potential paradoxes, you could, but they don't want to go to brain melting with it. I will give them that.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to deal with that for talking about it, but this is one of those, like, this is not something that's easily fixed. We get our first look at the warp ship itself, and I couldn't find anywhere documented what type of missile this was. So I don't know if it's a modern era missile or if it's a supposed futuristic missile.
Titan V with the second stage refit to be the ship.
Okay, so it is a Titan missile. I thought it looked like one, but I couldn't find anywhere that confirmed that.
Oh, in the script and in the background stuff, they actually do that. They based it off of the Titan V for the first stage, for the launch stage, which is why we get the U.S. Air Force graphics and iconography on it.
Now, one thing that's confusing, and I will give her a little credit because she's probably drunk and she just got attacked, but we see Lily here, and she's going to check out the ship, and she does the one thing you should never do near a rocket. She shoots a gun!
Although, at the same time, we get quite the display of how not human Data is. I mean, he drops down, what was it, 30 meters in a matter of 2 segments?
Yeah, and then he turns around and activates its integrated floating device.
But Lily empties into him, and he just turns around and is like, Greetings.
Greetings. And I love that. He has no hostility towards this woman that is trying to kill him. Lily passes out. Beverly comes over and says that she is suffering from severe theta radiation and that she needs to... Yeah, it's theta, isn't it? From the damaged throttle assembly.
Yep.
Yeah. Needs to go back to the ship to be taken care of. Beams out. Now we get back on the ship with Geordi playing Marine with his sleeves rolled.
Wait, what is this sort of insider joke I don't get?
Marines roll their sleeves during the summer.
When it gets hot, they...
Yeah. But it's a sign it's getting hot in there. So Geordi gets orders from the captain to assemble a crew to come down and fix the ship. And he starts picking his people that go down, and he gives instructions to check the environmentals. Because it's getting a little hot in here. And now we get a oddly touching scene of Picard reliving his boyhood fandom of that ship and his ability to touch it. And it mentions, I must have seen it a dozen times in the Smithsonian. I live right outside of DC, and I get to see all of the other ships in the Smithsonian. So I love the continuation of reality by saying that, just fitting it into what we consider reality. And then, Troy, should I leave you three alone?
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense for her to leave, considering that Data is about to touch Picard's boyhood or something.
Get back on the ship, where we get a little prelude to something's not right. Crew members are hot, trying to find shit, and they are there's clearly something on board that we are not aware of. Spoiler alert, it's the Borg.
Oh my god, the Borg.
Sounds Swedish.
Oh, definitely no sweets.
Back down below. Oh, and that's where Picard says he's going to go up, back up to the ship while they continue repairs down below. And he takes Data with him. Oh, I missed a couple shots in here. This is where I went and had breakfast and then came back and took a lot less screenshots, so there might be some jumps.
Okay.
I only had 250 in this series, not 600.
Yikes.
But then we get after everything is set down there, and they're talking about we should consider the possibility that Cochrane was killed. As Picard heads back to the ship, we then cut to Iger and Porter dealing with the environmental systems.
Yep.
And Porter recognizes it's not just in engineering. It's the entire environmental system. It's the entire deck. Maybe it's a problem with the EPS conduit, so let's go into the Jeffries tubes and find out what's going on.
Famous last words.
Yep. To which Porter calls out, Iger off-screen is asking, "Are you talking to me?" In which Porter asks, "Is there anyone else working maintenance in this section?" You should fucking know. And then immediately after Porter, we hear the muffled screams, and Iger, thinking she just heard something that, yeah, you probably should run, instead, doe-eyed, nervous, probably fearful, starts asking, "Are you okay in there?" And then Iger is taken out. To which, down on the surface, Picard starts to hear the whispers of the collective.
Yes.
And Troy stops and asks him, "Captain, what is it?" And without even acknowledging Troy, Picard establishes communication with the Enterprise to ask Worf what the situation status is. Yes, sir, we are experiencing some environmental difficulties on Deck 16, but that is all. What kind of difficulties? Humidity levels have risen 73%, and the temperature has jumped 10 degrees in the last hour. Mr. Data and I are returning to the ship. Number 1, take charge down here, and he fucks off at the speed of sound.
Yeah, because he has just been told we have Borg on our ship. By that basic information.
Coupled with what he just heard in his head, yeah, there was no doubt at that point. And then we cut to Crusher
in the sick bay?
In sick bay with Lily, saying, well, she should be fine. And power goes out. And Crusher's like,
Power flickers.
and she's like, oh god, what now? And all communications are cut, and there's banging on the door.
Not banging on the door. Those are dents in the door. Big difference. And I imagine that most doors on a starship are fairly stout.
Yeah, I don't think they're made of particle board. Although, when you look at the bridge, I mean, exploding rocks all over the place.
True.
Are you sure they're not made out of cardboard? I mean, most people there appear to be Americans.
I know the original set was pretty much cardboard. The original series set was so shit that they couldn't even use the bathroom because you could hear it through the microphones if they were recording. and the doors were manual. There were people behind them to pull them open and closed.
That explains the black trousers.
So Picard wants a status update on the ship. Worf tells him that they've lost contact with Deck 16, communications, internal sensors. He's sending a security team down there. And Picard says, no, seal it off. Post security teams at all access points. So he knows that at this point, the Borg are on Deck 16.
Gripe number 2. Jean-Luc, you have a moment right here to let your tactical officer know what the fuck is going on. Why aren't you telling him it's the Borg?
We have Borg crews on our ship, Mr. Worf. Prepare. Well, they kind of do. The next scene with them, it is clear that they're confronting the Borg. So just because they didn't say it right here doesn't mean that it hasn't been conveyed.
But
and then they start taking over the controls of the ship.
Well,
and he tells Mr. Data to lock him out, so he does his little finger dance across the keyboards.
Well, and right before that, that's where gotta use the cameo of the movie. It's funny. The character's name is Hawk, and what's the name of the act? And with that actor, calls out, is like, what were the exact environmental readings before we lost contact? 39.1 degrees Celsius. Hang on, let's go through. Atmospheric pressure was 2 kilopascals above normal, 92% humidity, 39.1 degrees Celsius. 39.1 degrees Celsius, like a Borg ship.
So it's
took you that
stated.
long?
Yeah.
Took them that long to say that to confirm what should have already been apparent. And then that's when the computer controls start being rerouted. Data does his finger magic, part 1. And locks out the main computer with a fractal encryption code.
Then we jump back to
I need to find a meme for later.
We jump back to the sick bay, where there are a lot more handprints on the inside of the door now. And another great cameo, great scene. Crusher, I swore I'd never use one of these. Activate the EMH, the emergency medical hologram. And our old friend from from Voyager appears and is given instructions, stall them.
I'm a doctor, not a doorstop.
Well, do a dance. Tell a story. I don't care. Just give us a few seconds.
Now, here's a question. Go back one. Well, 2 now.
By the way, Jared, look what I sent you on Discord.
Look at how much they've beaten in that door.
A lot.
How the fuck is that gonna open? Like I understand.
But with a can opener. It's going to push open. It's not going to slide.
Yeah, but if you're actually paying attention, what it sounds like when they do that, part of it is you get the swoosh of the doors actually opening properly. I don't think that would happen.
Maybe there's a little bit more play in the slots of the door than you think. Again, American construction. Subpar quality.
Hey, I thought these were made outside of Jupiter.
Mars.
Where was the E-build? I don't actually know.
Utopia
Planitia, probably?
Yeah. Yeah, you're thinking Jupiter Station, which was a program design facility.
Yeah. So then the EMH does what he's requested and starts distracting. And according to Starfleet medical research, Borg implants can cause severe skin irritation. Perhaps you'd like an analgesic cream?
Oh,
It's the little things. The little things.
The little nods that fit in so well with this movie. And then as they're going through the Jeffries tubes, Lily heads off in another direction because I don't know who the fuck these people are. I don't trust them. I'm gonna find my own way.
They just took you away from something that was beating through a door. I'm not sure you want to be on your own right now, even if you don't trust them.
Disorientated, lacking relevant information. It kind of makes sense.
No frame of reference regarding on knowing where she might be going. I mean, for all she knows, she might end up in a reactor room. Reactor exhaust, aim away from base.
So now we've got the War Council, the plan to go attack the Borg, and we establish here the general plans of what to do. That if they fire particle weapons around engineering, they risk hitting the warp core. Picard says that they should hit the coolant tanks, because the coolant tanks would liquefy any organic material it comes into contact with. And since the biological of the Borg are organic, it would pretty much turn them into a pile of mechanical.
Question, can't they eject the warp core? They did that in the later movies, didn't they?
The warp core, yes, but the coolant tanks don't go with it.
Yeah, that's the point. But they're afraid of shooting because they might hit the warp core.
But they've locked out.
Ejected.
They've locked out the main computer completely, though.
God damn it!
And I would imagine they don't want to eject out the warp core with the risk of not being able to get it back.
Well, I see the point, but I think at that moment they have bigger issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that you're in the wrong century. After a little bit of a tactical discussion, we come back down. And again, another one of the great scenes. There's so many scenes in this movie that I love.
Yes.
Deanna Troi.
The inspiration for the title of a prior episode.
Deanna! Deanna!
And what's nice is...
I almost caught it. I almost caught the bottle coming at his head as he unplugged the jukebox.
By the way, that screenshot earlier, where Deanna is staring at the bottle, that was actually taken while they took a break and Miranda Sirtis was realizing that her career was going down.
Oh, you're cruel.
I know.
And Deanna sees what he's trying to do before he even plugs her. She even tries to warn him. No, don't turn it. Aww.
And at this point, we find out that Zephram Cochrane is not dead. He is the one in the bar getting drunk with Deanna. This is our first sign. Don't meet your heroes.
He's not who you think he is. Is he a friend of yours?
Yes.
Husband?
No.
Good.
Right there. Good.
I mean, he'll talk about it later. Again, he likes using his train.
And now we've got Deanna's little drunken meltdown. Look, he wouldn't even talk to me unless I had a drink with him. And then it took 3 shots of something called tequila just to find out that he's the one that we're looking for. And I've spent the last 20 minutes trying to keep his hands off me. So don't go criticizing my counseling techniques. It's a primitive culture. I'm just blending in.
I'm just trying to blend in. Oh, you're blended, all right.
Blended all right.
Yeah, remember that they are not used to alcohol anymore.
Yeah, it's synthahol.
Their livers have probably shrunken to the size of a peanut.
See, this is one of those moments you need Scotty with you.
Oh, the professional alcoholic.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they got Riker, so that's probably the closest they have of the TNG crew.
Oh, and where's the line? I'm trying to find it in here. We don't have the time to talk about time.
Timeline. This is no time to argue about time. We don't have the time. What was I saying?
Yeah. Already have enough headaches regarding time travel.
And if you're looking for my professional opinion as the ship's counselor, he's nuts.
I'll be sure to note that in my log. Jukebox springs back to life. Cochrane starts dancing again, and Troy passes out.
I missed this as a screenshot. I tried a couple times. Well, she passes out right there. And then there's another scene where they're sitting side by side, and suddenly, somehow, her chair disappears from under her butt.
And then we go from that moment to the security teams making their way to main engineering to quickly and effectively eradicate the infestation that they are dealing with. Hopefully.
And now we get
They're using the wrong technique here. Going in with weapons wouldn't do anything. Just use a delousing agent like every normal person.
Yeah, Well, what were you thinking? Also use something from the Zyklon series?
Perhaps.
But after these couple shots of Worf, we cut to the other team being led by Picard and Data. Captain, I believe I am feeling anxiety. It's an intriguing sensation. A most distracting. Data, I'm sure it's a fascinating experience. Perhaps you should deactivate your emotion chip for now?
Good idea, sir. Click. Done.
Data,
Apparently LRJ feels so dirty about my joke that he needs a shower now.
Data, there are times when I envy you.
And we get our first view of crew members being assimilated. And Picard had already mentioned earlier on during the war brief that you're going to see members of the crew. Don't hold back.
Yeah, don't hold back. Trust me, you'd be doing them a favor. And I think what that's really hinting at the revenge aspect, but also a little bit of a dose of reality and the type of thinking that a commander in a combat situation has to think about. Mm-hmm. You cannot save everyone in this instance. You need to stop everything that's going on. You need to regain control and go from there. Now, while they were able to bring Picard back from being assimilated, it took how much, how long, and that was one person. He was one crew member that was assimilated that they managed to throw all their resources at to bring him back. At this point, you could probably say it's probably a good quarter of the crew is assimilated, another quarter dead.
I actually slightly disagree with that assessment, Jared, because the Borg actually needed Picard as a voice for the collective. I don't think they would give a fuck about other individual Borg drones. So the defense on keeping Picard on the cube might have been higher than for other regular drones.
Well, no, I'm saying that with Picard, the process that they went through on the Enterprise to de-Borgify him took more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that actual bit, that actual effort to bring him back from being assimilated, to bring him back.
It sounded like the physical act of actually kidnapping
No,
him from
no.
the cube.
No,
Okay, there we go.
the actual return to humanity, not the kidnapping.
I see where the confusion is coming from.
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
I love LRJ88's comment here. How I wish Wesley was still there by then. Could you imagine
What's
a
Wesley
Wesley
doing, by
Borg?
the way, at that time? Is there a law on that?
He's either still with the Traveler or just getting back to the Academy to re-continue his training. Because he does make an appearance in the wedding scene of Nemesis, and he is in uniform as either... I think he's a JG. I think he's a Lieutenant Junior grade, so he's been in long enough to have been promoted once. And with the amount of time, that would put him back at the Academy either during this movie or slightly after.
So the party continues down the hallway, and just as we've seen in every other series, if you are not a threat to the Borg just ignore you until you are a threat.
And
What you drinking, Geo?
And oh, you're gonna enjoy this one. But real quick, Andreas asked, did Data get his chip in the movie before this? Yes, he did. And the scene you just mentioned was, I see as Gayo's reaction to that movie. Hey, you want to try a new drink from Frelkus 3? Oh
Yes. This is disgusting.
It
I
is
hate this.
Yes, that's it. This is revolting. I hate this. More?
Would you like another?
Please. Oh, his enthusiasm for bad situations. But we get
Now,
more of the visual exposition of just how far the Borg have already gotten in assimilating the ship.
So, with our knowledge of the Borg, how realistic is that they have modified the ship to this level at this speed?
Within a couple hours, probably, because there's a design feature of the Sovereign class that actually has probably aided their assimilation of the ship.
The fact that the main computer is running on Windows Vista?
Oh, no.
Are you talking about the neurological gel packs?
The gel packs. Because think about that. If you just put a few nanites into the gel packs, you are now in direct control of the majority of the data system lines of the entire ship.
Yeah. Okay. And at this point, what was it that was the instigator of hostilities? Oh, I think it was when they when Picard, when they went to manual release the door for engineering, and as soon as they released the door, the Borg, as it says, Borg drone begins to stir.
Yes, is the manual emergency release handle broke off in Data's hand.
So we begin the first battle sequence with the Borg, which they rapidly actually adapt their individual shields to.
It's
so they
what,
only
4 or 5 shots?
Yeah.
Captain, they've adapted.
They've adapted. And at the end of that sequence, as everybody is retreating, the door to engineering opens up a little bit, Data gets grabbed by the cankles and yanked underneath. And as they are retreating, Ensign Lynch, Captain...
No, this isn't Lynch.
That's not Lynch?
Lynch was in the holodeck. Because keep in mind,
Yeah,
he
Lynch
had...
was the one where Picard cut off his transceiver or something.
Yeah.
No, this has got to be it.
No,
I'm pretty...
No.
He has not run into Lily yet.
Okay.
So this is just a no-name officer that was with the security team calling for help, and Picard gives arguably the best help he can.
That's just crew member number 6.
On the script, this is listed as Lynch.
Then that's false.
Yeah.
Okay.
The writer screwed that up then, because Lily's not. This is where he ran into Lily. He ran into Lily just after, and if he shot and killed Lynch, stopping the assimilation process because, hey, dead tissue ain't good for the Borg. Which brings another gripe a little bit later on. She's referring to the Borg on the holodeck that's coming up. And Picard names that one.
Yeah, so confrontation with Lily. She jacks his weapon.
Well, she bumped into him, he dropped it, and she, like a good little scavenger, picks it up.
Yeah, anything that looks like it might go bang, pick it up, take it. Then a quick jump back over to engineering, where we see that Data has now been captured by the Borg, and first time we start hearing the words of the Borg Queen.
And we run into the main gripe I have with this movie. Great way to castrate an amazing enemy. Because one of the big fear factors of the Borg was the fact that they were one giant hive mind with no direct leadership or control. It was quite literally a true collective. No
But
individuals, one large organization, one large entity.
You can still make the argument that that's still the case. Because we don't necessarily know that the Borg Queen is an individuum inside the collective. It could also be just an organelle of the collective, namely some sort of loudspeaker. But whatever the Borg Queen is saying, that's actually what the collective itself is thinking.
Look at the verbiage, though. Look at how the character speaks.
She establishes herself.
That might be lost in translation. I haven't seen that movie in English in a long time.
So all the individual drones and communication, like think about 7 of 9 disconnection from the collective. Talks in the plural, talks in the we, the us. The Queen talks as an individual.
Okay, yeah, I see that point.
Yeah, she does. She doesn't do it too much here with Data, but she does. Well, she does later on.
Yeah.
At this
On the
point,
other hand,
she's not necessarily
she does
establishing herself as an individual.
Yeah, she does say something to the effect of "I am the Borg," which kind of makes sense regarding my hypothesis as well, I guess.
Yeah. Back down on the Earth, as they're trying to convince Cochrane. And they do the jump sequences in this very well, just to continue each of the storylines and not forget about the other parts to it. So we're back down on the Earth to show Cochrane that what is happening, and they have laid it all on the line, that a group of cybernetic creatures from the future have traveled back through time to enslave the human race, and you're here to stop them.
Oh, this bit gets so meta. I love it.
So they pull up on his telescope and show him the Enterprise. And at first he's a little incredulous. It's a trick.
Yeah, he gets the flat earther defense. Oh, then
Yeah.
the telescope is manipulated with some sort of government chip.
That's your telescope.
Oh, fuck.
And they completely lay it on the line that where is it? That because at 11 o'clock, an alien ship will be passing through the solar system. That's why he needs to have the flight. Now, when he says tomorrow morning, I'm guessing it's at like 4 a.m. right now, and tomorrow means the following morning. Or is this like in 10 hours?
So
Yeah, it's something like in 36 hours.
Well,
On
no.
the other hand, they arrived
No.
the 4th of April, right? So it's now the 5th or the 6th of April?
They arrived the day before first contact. So they had 24 hours or less before the actual first contact event.
48 hours or less.
1 day.
Yeah,
the day
yeah,
before.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I
no,
know.
no. They said the day before first contact. I think first contact was on April 5th.
Yes.
So
Right?
we have a
That
couple
means
different
that if it
conflicting
happened
things.
late on April 5th, let's say at 2300, and they arrived on April 4th at like 1 a.m., that would give them 46 hours.
So it could still be April 4th right now.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. My headset just died. Give me a second.
But
There we go. Repeat the last statement, please. I didn't hear you.
So this
It's
could
still
still
the
be
4th.
April. This could be the morning of the April 4th because
Pre-dawn.
at some point on the ship, they said that we have less than 48 hours. But as soon as they arrived, Data said that it was the 4th of April. So unless they got there like at the crack of midnight, it almost sounds like they got like 10 hours. But either way, neither here nor there.
Very short time window to actually get this done, which is why Riker made the decision. Fuck the timeline at this point. We need to tell them what's actually going on so we can keep things going in proper order.
So Cochrane asks, more aliens, bad guys? And
No, good
Troy-
guys.
Doctor, tomorrow morning they will detect the warp signature from your ship and realize that humans have discovered how to travel faster than light. They decided to alter their course and make first contact right here.
Here? Well, actually,
Over there. And we also missed an earlier quote from Troy as to why they were not going to stop already. It's like, too primitive.
Yeah.
And there comes your meta moment. You want to take it, Jared?
Trying to find it on... where's...
4 lines up.
Yep, I got it right here. And you people, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
Roll credits?
I don't know how they actually got through that line without giggling, but they did.
Oh,
Because that is the cheesiest of lines ever.
but it works.
Is it?
One of the cheesiest ever. Yeah, it's up there.
Once again, back up on the ship. Right now, they've gotten decks 26 up to 11.
But when they got to deck 11, they just stopped.
They stopped.
Well, what's on deck 11? Hydroponics, stellar cartography, deflector control. And
All vital systems.
Well, deflector control, yes. Stellar
What is
cartography. Hydroponics is food.
Oh, so they're getting to the wheat supply. Holy fuck, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
As long as they don't have tribbles. So,
Remember,
we
William
get some-
Shatner's toupee is not on board.
We get some exposition here of views of the Borg, and then see some of the crew
Being
mid-assimilation
assimilation
process.
And then we...
Now, here's the scene that you were talking about earlier. So that's the window that he uses with Lily, which is, like I said, well below shoulder height.
It's listed as an umbilical docking port.
Okay. So that's not necessarily a window then.
No.
Okay.
Which is why it has the opening in the manner that it does. It's almost like an airlock.
Okay.
Not a true dedicated airlock, but can be used as one.
And then has a force shield just like the shuttle bay for entry and exit.
Correct.
Yep.
That is weird, though. That's a super strange format for a docking port.
Well, it's for an umbilical docking location, not necessarily personnel. So supplies and other tethered communications and whatnot.
Yeah, but that's still weird, because wouldn't you want the floor to be even and not have this bump there?
It served the purpose, and they had to have a reason to open up a door and tap it.
Yeah.
Plot armor.
So sometimes you just gotta tap it. Which gives Picard reason to actually convince Lily to hand over the phaser, which Picard turns around and points to her.
Maximum setting. If you'd fired this, you would have vaporized me. It's my first ray gun. And then here we can see touching the window.
I've never seen this kind of technology. It's because it hasn't
Because it
been
doesn't exist yet.
There's more I have to tell you. Come on. And then this is where we cut to more of that direct interaction between the Queen and Data, where we actually finally get the visual of the embodiment of the Borg Queen.
By the way, it took months to get that shot right.
I could imagine so.
On the Blu-ray version of the movie, there's a short documentary about how they did that. Basically, they had an automated camera that would do the exact same movements twice, once with the actress dangling on a harness, and once with her standing there. And then they would superimpose the two.
It worked out fairly well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it actually ended up, end result was actually a phenomenally seamless transition between the two. And just keep those tendril-like chords in mind for later.
I have a question about those as well, so. Now we have the first face-to-face sequence with the Borg Queen and Data. And we see what her intentions are for Data.
Jared, I think now is the right time to show you to show our viewers what I sent you on Discord.
No, not quite there yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Not yet. While she does this, and the Borg Queen even comments, after Data trying to describe what she has had done to him, her response is, "What a cold description for such a beautiful gift."
Am I the only one who's kind of weirded out on where they got that skin from? I mean, did they grow it in a tube or a petri dish or something, or did they harvest it from one of their victims using a potato peeler?
I think they harvested it.
Yeah, that came from a different crew member, I'm willing to bet.
I hope it was arm skin.
Now, what's interesting is the script says the Borg Queen strokes the section of skin. Oh no. That was not a stroke. She blew it. And then asks, "Was that good for you?"
And as you could clearly see from the look on Data's face, yes. Yes, it was.
He was intrigued.
Yeah, for like 50 milliseconds.
But for an android, that's an eternity.
Eternity. Back out to Picard and Lily. And this is where Picard gives a little bit of a lesson on the Federation. Says that there's 150 planets in it, spreading across 8,000 light years. A little bit about the ship, how big it is. And I think this isn't the scene quite yet about money. But this is where it comes up who the enemy is, and it's the Borg, and Lily's response.
Well, she asks, Borg, sounds Swedish. And then she asks, how big is the ship? And this is where we get into some continuity issues.
Oh, yeah, so it is in this scene. So there are 24 decks, almost 700 meters long. And she says that it took me 6 months to scrounge up enough titanium for a 4-meter cockpit. How much did this thing cost?
The economics of the future are somewhat different.
The answer to that question is simply no. How much did the thing cost? No.
No money? That means you don't get paid? Well,
The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. Actually, we're rather like yourself and Dr. Cochrane. Once again, misplacing your trust in your heroes.
yeah. And Lily is freaked out as they go down a corridor lined with Borg when Picard, rather than giving this new person the heads up, is like, no, they won't attack if they don't see you as a threat. Rather than giving her that vital piece of information, no, I got this. As a matter of fact, he said, I know what I'm doing. Oh, okay, I'm about to start referring to him as Captain Dick at this point.
He is in a precarious situation right now, remember? He is facing his white whale. A little flash forward.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure the Data is also
honestly-
facing his white whale at the moment.
No, she didn't look like a whale.
I'm talking
I
about
honestly-
another patch of
Captain
skin, but
Picard-
whatever.
Picard is not thinking right, and that becomes very evident towards the end of the movie. He is obsessed. He is Ahab.
Well, and coming up to it, we get another moment of it, because now, where does Picard lead her? Into the holodeck, where he pulls up a scene from arguably his only, if not his favorite, holo novel to take part in, The Adventures of Dixon Hill.
And hey, there's Neelix in a slightly less annoying role than usual. For those
And
who
a
didn't
lot
know,
less makeup required for this one.
standing in front of a bar, that is Ethan Phillips, the guy who played Neelix on Voyager, and the fat Ferengi in that one Enterprise episode.
Yep.
What was his name? Eunice or something?
Sounds about right.
So after some interactions in the holodeck, Picard realizes he's in the wrong chapter because he needs a weapon. So gets to the right chapter, gets a Tommy gun, and unloads on the Borg.
I thought you said this is just all lights and a bunch of holograms. I didn't... If this was holograms, I disengage the safety protocols. Without them, even a holographic bullet can kill.
So then Picard starts digging through one of the Borg to try and get out their memory chip. And that's when Lily notices, oh my, Jean-Luc, it's one of your uniforms.
Yes, this was Ensign Lynch.
Tough luck, huh? And you can see that cold... I hate saying cold-hearted,
It really is, though.
but... Yeah.
Can we talk about the foreshadowing regarding the name? I mean, the guy's called Lynch, for fuck's sake.
Hey, what are you trying to drive at?
That he
And
was
yeah,
lynched. Badumts.
well, and so what Picard was digging for was the neural processor. That way, he could tap in to see what they're actually doing and what they're actually planning. And Picard does so. He pulls it out. He connects it to the tricorder, and just not defeated, but very, oh shit, I've got to get to the bridge. So,
And
what did he find out?
Don't know. Cutscene back down to Earth, where we've got LaForge, Cochrane, and then another favorite character from another series, Lieutenant Barclay, who became a somewhat pivotal member of the Voyager series in the last couple of seasons. But you could see the absolute giddy look on Barclay's face because he's meeting a hero.
Yep. And this is where it really does show. Hero worship is one thing. Don't meet them in the middle of their lifetime. It would be one thing to meet your hero. Like, if they were to have met Cochrane later in his life, when they actually have the recordings and him actually saying and espousing what it is that he is recorded as having been a proponent of.
On this side, a powerful engine will be built, or something like that.
Yeah, though meeting him in those instances wouldn't have been as bad. But here, Reg really lets loose like the fangirl that he is.
Yeah. And then Geordi does not help the situation by informing Cochrane of some of the truths behind it. He's like, it explains to him, it's just a little hero worship, Doctor. To tell you the truth, I can't blame him. We all grew up hearing about what you did, or what you're about to do. You know, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I went to Zephram Cochrane High School.
Really? You know, I wish I had a picture of this. What?
What?
Well, you see, in the future, this whole area becomes a historical monument. You're standing almost on the exact spot where your statue's gonna be.
Statue?
Yeah, it's marble, about 20 meters tall, and you're looking up at the sky, your hand sort of reaching out to the future.
I gotta take a leak.
Leak? I don't detect a leak.
Don't you people in the 24th century ever pee?
Fucking meta! I love it!
24th, but whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, leak. I get it.
That's pretty funny. So we jump back up to the ship with Picard, Crusher, and Worf. As they're talking about what the issue is going to the deflector dish.
Well, before that, gotta love the whole, I found something you lost.
Oh. Yeah. He brings Lily back. So they start talking about having to go out on the deflector dish because it's a subspace transmitter. If they activate the beacon, it will be able to establish a link with the Borg living in this century. And we can't get to the deflector dish or shuttlecraft, Mr. Worf. Do you remember your zero-G combat training?
I remember it made me sick to my stomach, and then it sinks in. What are you suggesting?
I think it's time to take a stroll. And again, the graphics, perfect amount of CGI for most parts, and I loved the complete disregard to what we expect is up and down, because in space it's not.
Oh yeah, there's no innate reference frame in space.
Also, I love the fact how correct they got the Earth. Can you look at what that landmass is? Do you know? I know.
Is that the Iberian Peninsula?
Yeah, that's Portugal, and on the bottom right you see the Strait of Gibraltar with part of Morocco on the south.
Then jump back over to Data and the Borg Queen. As I think on this one, I missed a bunch of shots in here, but Data gets away.
Data is doing his best Data, asking such nuanced, almost bordering on asinine questions just out of sheer curiosity, at which throughout this, the Borg Queen is like, why are you doing this? Why are you acting... Essentially, why are you acting like a child? Well,
actually,
I am a child.
I don't think he's doing this out of sheer curiosity. He wants to stall.
It's both. It's both. But he's pulling the Data tact that you got in the first few seasons of TNG, where overly inquisitive to the point of being annoying, except this time he's doing it intentionally. And that's
he's doing it very well.
He is. And of course he tries to make his escape attempt, to which he almost gets away, and all the Borg Queen has to do is I don't know. Did she wink or wiggle her nose? It was very bewitched of herself to do it this way. Yeah, I don't really like the character of the Queen.
And then during the battle at the door, Data gets some of his skin damaged.
And he responds as anyone with the sensation from flesh would.
He tries to play it off. This isn't me cherishing this new thing I have. This is me responding the way normal people do.
Oh, you're becoming more human all the time, Data. You're even learning to lie like them. If she could figure that out, then why hasn't she been able to piece together that he's going to try to betray her at some point? Not a question of if, just when. How can such an omnipotent, more than three-dimensionally thinking creature be this oblivious?
Hubris. Pure hubris.
Yeah, you missed a
Pure
word.
fucking hubris.
Yeah.
Ah, Jared got it.
Hate that fucking show. Anyways, so after this, the flirtations go even further to where she asked, "Are you familiar with physical forms of pleasure?"
If you're referring to sexuality, I am fully functional, programmed in multiple techniques.
How long has it been since you've used them?
8 years, 7 months, 16 days, 1 minute, 22.
Far too long. Oh, but if only we could have that character back. I mean, Sela is one thing, but Tasha Yar was the so much potential and so much wasted.
So quickly wasted, too.
And then we cut back out to the skin of the ship where they get closer to the deflector dish, and Worf mentions we should bring reinforcements. And judging by the pace at which they were going, Picard rightly says there's no time. Now, let's remember this when looking at how the rest of this plays out. Well, if we set our phasers to full power, no, there's a risk we hit the dish. It's charged with antiprotons. We could destroy half the ship. We have to find another way. Now, looking at this, what portion would you consider the dish?
Basically, the entire thing, everything that's illuminated.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna run into some issues then.
Yeah, they just remove the middle part, don't they? If I remember correctly.
They disconnect the center portion, but it's more than just that. That's not the issue that I have, because you can have a segmented array like that and be fine, because they're building it on the particle emitter. The deflector dish has multiple segments to it, which is why it's such a useful piece of technology for all the magical stuff that they end up having it perform throughout the entire franchise. But before we get into that, we get brought back down to the planet where Cochrane is being pursued by Riker and Geordi and a few others. Oh, you didn't get anything from that bit. Okay,
I didn't. Yeah,
that bit pretty much does come down to Riker getting exasperated and saying, "We don't have time for this," and stuns Cochrane to stop him. And
because he was running because they had scared the shit out of him. You told him about the statue?
yeah. And then we get back up to the dish where the plan is they have to release the magnetic interlocks to disconnect that portion of the deflector dish so they can proceed with their efforts to disrupt the Borg plans. Now he said
I didn't get a whole lot of shots on this one. I think I've only got like 3 or 4. So sorry, continue.
So in this, as we can see where the 3 stations that they have to reach are. Top of the screenshot is where Picard is. Hawk is going towards the lower right, and Worf is headed to the one to the left. All 3 have to be activated in order to complete the procedure to disconnect so they can cut the Borg off. But because of the computer lockout, there's no access to the LCARS network, so they have to manipulate the isolinear chips to even get access in the first place. And as they're doing this and setting off the alarms for, hey, entry not allowed, it gets the attention of the drones working on the array. And
as soon as they start, sniffing that something isn't up, the drones, they don't go all out and attack because they maintain mission of the dish, but then they do send some of the Borgs after the crew to prevent them from doing what they have to. And I enjoyed this particular shot here because it does show a fairly accurate depiction, other than, would his boots still have stuck? I don't know. Maybe if the Borg is dead, everything dies and he floats away, but he floats across the dish, fairly well representative of 0G.
Yep.
But then comes the shittiest CGI in the entire movie as the Borg floats away across the ship.
Now, the chat has already brought up yet another one of my gripes. The Borg are reliant on their organic and biological segment just as much as their technological. They're in the vacuum of space. The 3 heroes in this instance are all in environmental suits, pressure suits. Why the fuck aren't the Borg in something similar?
Well, maybe they're using their personal defense shield as a pressure suit thing.
You could do. I could see that. Good call on that one. But if that was up and active, that first phaser shot should have been blocked, wouldn't it? Because the shields are adaptive.
They have a defense shield, force field thing that they often use against phaser weapons.
Yeah, it would have to be 2 different things, an internal shield and an external shield, because if they were the same thing, the shield should have been up.
Yeah, well...
Otherwise, they would be boiling away.
Well, and keep in mind, the way that you dissipate the energy of the shields is by frequency matching and energy type matching to provide that destructive interference. So the shields are a plausible thing that they could be up and not be seen because you're not getting that interaction and that dissipation. But after the one shot, they've adapted again.
And then we get the great scene, because, every good Klingon warrior has a hand-to-hand weapon, regardless of the scenario.
Oh, gotta have a melee weapon with you when you're in battle. You gotta give the Klingons credit for that. They know how to be prepared. And Worf, in typical Klingon badassery, does end up taking out his opponent, but not before he himself suffers what should be a fatal injury to his suit.
And that is later corrected, so now we see Hawk carried away, foreshadowing, not killed or thrown, but carried away, and comes back minutes later.
Already significantly Borgified. Now, here's the thing. Go back one. Because there's something that... The reason why I made a point that Picard stressed that See what's happening behind the Borg in that? We're getting a gas ejectant from part of the deflector dish that Picard shot to get rid of another Borg.
Yes, so that was... Oh, I missed that as well. Yeah, so when Picard, the deflector disc had been shot, steam of something comes out, shoots that Borg away, but Picard then later on disengages his mag boots, pushes off and goes straight across over the same cloud that doesn't push him higher. That should have pushed him farther away and basically been lost in space.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of missed... You got some things right in this scene, and you missed others.
Yep.
But, when it comes down to it, though, the heroes, with the valiant sacrifice in the end of Hawk, who gets taken out by... Wait, that's a phaser blast. Where'd it come from? Hey! Worf used the severed arm of a Borg as a tourniquet. So they finish the sequence, they disconnect it, Picard severs the cable that was the tether for that segment of the deflector dish. Worf waits for the dish to get far enough away, and how could he tell? Well, it went from the shadow under the ship into direct sunlight. And Worf, in his best Arnold impersonation, assimilate
this.
And then...
Now, continuity issues. Here's where timelines bug me. Because it's not exactly here, but you can see Riker is already in the flight crew uniform as he's talking with Cochrane. And they are now a very active participant in this endeavor. Mm-hmm. How did their names not end up in history books?
Because the amount of people who died on the surface, and if you look at it, the majority of people who are actually doing the work for the launch at this point are the Starfleet personnel. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be around. They're leaving.
But does that mean that Cochrane flew it alone? Do the history books get written without them?
The history books do only mention Cochrane as being on the warp flight, because it from canon, and they held true on this into Enterprise too, is I'm not going to put anyone else at risk. I'm doing it myself, which is not the Cochrane that we meet here. But I think what it is he made that bit up to explain why, yeah, there were 3 seats to it, but it was just me. I took the risk on my own because I pretty sure it was going to work, but if it didn't, I didn't want to risk anyone else. That's the justification given. Kinda backwards retconning it in a way that does provide some plausibility, but yeah, it's a tough sell.
And here in this scene is what I've been talking about the whole time, is where we meet our hero. We truly meet our hero. And Cochrane responds during this conversation with Riker, he's like, please don't tell me it's all thanks to me. I've heard enough about this Zephram Cochrane. I don't know who writes your history books or where they get their information from, but you people got some pretty funny ideas about me. You all look at me as if I'm some sort of saint or visionary or something.
I don't think you're a saint, Doc, but you did have a vision, and now we're sitting in it.
You want to know what my vision is? Dollar signs. Money. I didn't build this ship to usher in a new era for humanity. You think I want to go to the stars? I don't even like to fly. I take trains. I built this ship so that I could retire on some tropical island filled with naked women. That's Zephram Cochrane. That's my vision. This other guy you're talking about, this historic figure, I've never met him. I can't imagine I ever will.
Well, someone once said, don't try to be a great man, just be a man, and let history make its own judgments.
Rhetorical nonsense. Who said that?
You did 10 years from now. You've got 58 minutes, Doc.
Yeah. Is this... Now, God, no, I cannot think of the term. Damn it. When the female character is perfect.
Oh, Mary Sue.
Yeah, this is like the polar opposite of Mary suing.
Well, it really does buy into that whole trope of don't meet your heroes because they're not going to live up to how you've crafted them in your mind. And I would completely agree with that because... And yet, here's the thing with Riker. Riker recognizes there's the myth, there's the legend that is passed on through history, but the man had flaws. We just don't know exactly what they were. And I think Picard likes him because, hey, he has the same flaws I do.
Yeah. There might be some bloodline lineage between the two. So then, next scene is back up on the ship and back on the bridge. Picard is not standing down. That some of the other crew mentioned that maybe it's time to destroy the ship, take out the Borg, and
be done with
Picard,
it that way.
And be done with it. Picard is 110% against it. And a bit of a standoff. Picard says, we have not lost the Enterprise, Mr. Worf. We're not going to lose the Enterprise. Not to the Borg. Not while I'm in command. You have your orders. At one point, Picard tells him, you're afraid. You want me to destroy the ship and run away. You coward.
And Crusher steps in to try to cool it because she sees where it's going and it ain't good. And Worf,
as Worf says it, if he wouldn't be wearing that uniform, then Worf would have torn him in half like a telephone book.
Well, if you were any other man, I would kill you where you stand.
Oh, and he would have. Absolutely would have.
And shit, he took out Gowron. Just on
not by
principle.
That point yet. That happens later.
Well, yeah, it happens after, but it's still that whole... Worf actually does screw around a lot of times when his honor is challenged. Even
he had killed Duras already.
Yeah, he had Duras. He had when he stood up for his brother on DS9. And
oh, don't forget about when he took out Martok's son. What was his name? Fuck's sake.
Well, at first he beat up his son, took his blade, and just waited for Martok to show up.
Martok's son was called... let's see... Drex.
Yep. So this ends up spilling over as Crusher and others go on to do their best to fulfill the orders of their captain. Picard goes into the observation lounge, and Lily runs after him.
Before that, you can see Lily and her rebellion. So what do we do now?
Carry out his orders.
And she is just incensed at that thought. And I love the first line as she walks into the observation lounge.
You son of a
bitch.
And Picard trying to say that this really isn't the time.
Again, the writers on this one. This scene was nailed. Because for 80% of this scene, Picard is wrong.
Oh, yeah. He really is in the wrong. And they used Lily so masterfully to give that criticism to where she admits, I don't know anything about the 24th century, but you're making a major mistake here. You're fighting a losing battle. Cut your losses and move on. And Picard is shooting back, just trying to counter point for point. And one of my favorite parts in this is where Picard says that the crew is accustomed to following my orders. Well, the crew is accustomed to your orders making sense. You've gone off the fucking rails.
None of them understand the Borg like I do. And he goes down that line and delivered absolutely masterfully, but it lays out his position. And that's when you can see the light go on for Lily, and her response was, I'm such an idiot. It's so simple. The Borg hurt you, and now you're going to hurt them back.
But by the way, Jared, that comment about Picard's order not making sense, that was a burn of the highest degree. I mean, even fucking Captain Pike would start beeping in fear because of this.
Fuck you.
But even when she calls him out, he doesn't give up. He continues down the path of being wrong. Until she calls him Ahab. But no, not even then.
No, it starts sinking in. Because Picard said, in my century, we don't succumb to revenge. We have a more evolved sensibility. And Lily, bullshit! I saw the look on your face when you shot those Borg on the holodeck. You were almost enjoying it. How dare you? Oh, come on, Captain. You're not the first man to get a thrill from murdering someone. I see it all the time. Get out!
And she calls him Captain Ahab. And it... what? You don't have books in the 24th century?
This is not about revenge. Liar!
And as beautiful as this line is, it is still wrong. Picard's soliloquy, as you might call it, on, no, I will not sacrifice the Enterprise. We've made too many compromises already. Too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no further. And I will make them pay for what they've done. You can feel it in his delivery. And Lily's gentle response?
Well, because right before that, when Picard screamed no, he swung around and smashed the display case. And Lily's almost motherly, gentle response. You broke your little ships. But then the final jab, the final stab that really made it sink in. See you around, Ahab.
And he piled upon the whale's white hump a sum of all the rage and hate felt by his own race. If his chest had been a cannon, it would have shot his heart upon it.
What?
Moby Dick.
Actually, I never read it.
It was a good bluff, though. It was a really good bluff.
It really was, and Picard you can tell he recognized it and appropriately assessed the situation from that point and went forward and pointed out Ahab spent years hunting the white whale that crippled him, a quest for vengeance, but in the end it destroyed him and his ship. I guess he didn't know when to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, Lily succeeded where the rest of the command staff who was left aboard the ship failed. She got Picard to change his mind. He goes out and says, prepare to evacuate the Enterprise.
It took that one little trigger. Something to get to him. And dumb luck. Other than, it's part of the plot and they wrote in the story, but real world, dumb luck that Lily was able to hit that trigger.
Now,
because if she hadn't, it would not have gone down this road.
Now, a bit of interesting connection in the background. Guess what role Patrick Stewart played 2 years after this?
Captain Ahab?
Yes.
So they begin preparing the ship for evacuation. They give the orders for self-destruct. And Picard apologizes. Lily pulled him back from the edge.
And Worf accepts it and even thanks him. Although, typical Klingon, Mr. Worf, I regret some of the things I said to you earlier.
Some?
As a matter of fact, I think you're the bravest man I have ever known. And
Thank you, sir.
That is what started to heal that relationship.
And there's another line intermixed in here that I love when they're talking about the ship. That the self-destruct is started. And Crusher's comment of so much for the Enterprise E.
We barely knew her.
You think they'll build another one?
Plenty of letters left in the alphabet. One of the few ships that has actually been given that treatment of a legacy registry.
Yeah. Quick shot back down onto the Earth. Everybody ready to make some history?
And of course, LaForge, always am. And Cochrane, I think I forgot something. What? I don't know. It's probably nothing. And then they begin the ignition sequence, and the countdown verbally starts. And Cochrane is freaking the F out. You have to enjoy that real dose of humanity of someone who is not accustomed to these situations, essentially looking for their emotional blanket, their emotional security latch. And what is it? As it gets...
Magic carpet ride.
Which Cochrane announces, let's rock and roll, and blares it through the intercom right before ignition and liftoff.
And then halfway through liftoff, could we turn that down a little bit?
What? I can't hear you over the loud music.
Let me turn it down so I can hear you.
And then LaForge, being the astute engineer, hey, we've got a red light on the second intake valve. Cochrane, doing the typical pilot maneuver, reaches up, flicks it. Okay, that didn't work. Smacks the side of the box. That didn't work. Ignore it.
That's a typical engineer response.
It depends on what it is. But then we go through and get a nice visual in a final deployment of what the actual Phoenix looks like in its glory. And then cut back and we see that the evacuation order of the Enterprise has taken place as it should.
Now, here is my other continuity issue. Did they get all those back?
Yes.
Are those capable of lifting off from surface?
Yes.
Okay, that was my concern, is because that's a lot of escape capsules to be leaving on Earth in the wrong century.
These versions of the lifeboats do have the stores for a re-entry after landing, but only once.
Mm.
You know, that is an interesting fact there, Gayo.
Do you think?
Well, yeah, so they're essentially, Cochrane, Riker, and LaForge are doing the first warp flight of humanity in the two-stroke version of a warp engine.
That's not a two-stroke, it's carbureted. It just doesn't have the injectors that the later models always talk about. And I think Enterprise had an intermix chamber as well. And by Enterprise, I mean NX-01.
Yeah, the NX-01 was the that hybrid, because keep in mind the NX-01 did not initially have variable valves for the injector nozzles.
Yet it also ran on the stupid auto cycle all the time and couldn't switch to Atkinson cycle by a variable timing. What's it called? Camshaft, I guess. Also, they need more than 4 cylinders. Just saying.
I missed one little scene in here, intermixed in there as they were getting ready to evacuate the ship, where Lily recognized that Picard is not evacuating, and explains to her that somebody who saved me once is still on the ship. And her, again, just motherly response of, go find your friend.
As 2000 GT, they needed VTech. Nice. And then Picard makes his way to engineering, looking around. He sees the warp core and everything around it, and the ethereal yet violent introduction of, what's wrong, Locutus? Isn't this familiar? A way to retcon that, yeah, she was there on the cube when he was assimilated, and Picard actually does start to put it together. Part of the reason why the Queen chose him and chose to assimilate him in the way that he did, which is in similar fashion to what she's doing to Data. Keep enough individuality that you're not a clone, but an equal. Which, again, not how the Queen of a collective colony would effing work.
So, confrontation here as Picard is realizing the Queen, and seeing that Data is still there and trying to offer himself in Data's place to let him go.
Even going so far as to say, I just lost it. It's not too late. Locutus could still be with you, just in the way you wanted, an equal.
Let Data go, and I will take my place at your side, willingly, without resistance.
Yeah, no, it doesn't quite work that way.
So
But
she
by the way,
agrees
Jared, you forgot about the drawing on this.
Oh, yeah. So, well, we'll get to that in a second, because Data's gonna undo some things.
So Data decides he doesn't want to leave. Picard tries to instruct him to go, and he will not. And the Borg Queen instructs him, deactivate the self-destruct sequence, which he does. And makes the comment that he will make an excellent drone.
And just
And I love the split hair.
you gotta go full duality on it. I mean, how else would they have been able to graft that skin and eye without even going farther back? I mean, gotta make him look as disheveled as possible.
Like this goes back to the original question. Is Data right now wearing someone else's face?
Yes.
That's creepy.
Yes. That's the thing. The Borg were shock value when you look at it. They are so... What they are and what they represent are so against the Starfleet and Federation ideals that is one way to convey it. And at least they have kept those aspects of the Borg consistent throughout all the iterations of them. At which point we then cut back to the Phoenix cockpit. They're going through their final checklist, and everything's looking good. And they think we're ready to go ahead and do it. And Cochrane says, "Sweet Jesus," in reaction to the shadow. Riker.
Yeah, that was a great scene. That was an absolutely great scene.
Yeah, Riker leans forward and says, "Oh, relax, Doctor. I'm sure they're here just to give us a send-off." Sure, keep thinking that.
So we flash back over to Data and the Borg.
Picard is now on a biobed, and Data saying, "I'm bringing the external sensors online." The Phoenix appears on the view screen, and cuts back to Riker calling out the status as they are increasing in velocity, that they are 30 seconds to warp threshold, approaching light speed.
That's not how warp works.
That's
how impulse works. It's not how warp works.
They're reaching critical velocity.
Is it like 88 miles per hour kind of thing?
Yeah, it's got... Well, again, we're looking at a primitive version of the warp engine where the warp field may be active, but it's not creating the effect enough to get the velocity to FTL yet.
Yeah.
And there is that bump that they've got to take.
So the Borg Queen instructs Data to launch quantum torpedoes. Data confirms torpedoes locked. Destroy them. And 3 quantum torpedoes are lobbed at the Phoenix.
Watch your futures end. And they miss.
Resistance is futile. In the voice of Data, not the Queen. And Data does exactly what they had foreshadowed earlier as a way to get rid of the organic compounds within the engineering compartment.
And
now, here was my question. What are the mechanics of those hoses that make them manipulatable?
Nanotubes.
Plot.
Yeah, those aren't nano, Jared.
No, nanotubes inside of the outer tubes. Because keep in mind, those connect directly to her head and shoulders. Knees and toes.
So those large tubes are made of nanotubes. Are we now talking about tubeception?
Yes.
So we've had Trekception and tubeception.
Hey, we've already had Borgception with the...
Jared, don't forget the Discord thing. That now is literally the last scene where you can use it.
Yeah.
You pulling that up now?
Yep, I'm opening it up now. And people will see it out in the live. Remember, safety first. Do not fist android girls. Let's... No, come on. Zoom out. There we go. That's not where I wanted you, you bastard. It kept going to full screen. There we go. Now, let's go ahead and keep this as a welcome reminder. Alright. But especially with Picard uses those manipulating tubules to try to climb away from the coolant that is devouring all organic biologic life in the area. And the Queen is trying to climb up him, and she's making some rather interesting noises as she's doing so. Only
Very human noises.
yeah, and they get worse when. Well, did you get the hand? Well, it cuts away from it for a moment.
Yep. There's some cutting back and forth.
Um,
So, cuts over to them initiating the warp drive, and Cochrane.
Wait, stop, Jared. Discord.
okay, what you find? Oh God, no!
You have to click it. It's a GIF.
Oh, I can see it.
Yep.
Hang on. Let's bring that back, and then... That is actually a very fair representation of what's actually taking place inside of that cloud. But remember, even with that going on, don't fist android girls unless you have proper lubrication and you've checked the gap. Okay.
I recommend 10W40 engine oil.
We've got Cochrane and the crew flying away, going into warp.
Then Data reaching up and, wow, the flesh is gone. And she's like, oh shit. What's he doing? Wait, he's gonna grab me. And they grabbed her on the sides of the waist, and that apparently was enough of a grip for her to let go of Picard and fall down into the fog. So
my question would be, how much Data is 100% android?
Yep.
Are her hands android? Or are they human?
The only organic part in her is head and the part of the
upper torso. Yeah, upper torso, neck, and head is all that was organic on her.
So her flirtation earlier with Data was for no purpose because she don't got the parts?
Purely mechanical.
Yeah, well, Data might have been down with that. But, so either way.
wait. So I just came up with something absolutely idiotic. When she gave him advice on how to handle her southern parts, she said something to the effect of 2 lanes further down, then to the left and right through the stompers.
Oh, wow.
Get it? Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. Which Galaxy Quest is on the voting
list.
It's on the voting block for Wednesday's movie.
Nice.
So, why that was enough to get her dislodged, I don't know, because they both have android hands that are wickedly strong.
Wait a minute. Not everyone keeps their genitals in the same place.
Maybe he was fondling her, and she got excited.
Remember that. No, well, on the other hand, must the Borg Queen not be a human or former human from the crew? And I kind of haven't. I think we haven't seen an alien on the Enterprise that doesn't have the genitals in the correct place.
Well, the
Or
captains
was
and the
Queen beamed over?
Yeah, she might have been part of that crew that beamed over.
Possibly, yeah.
So after they get pulled down, Picard initiates the cleaning procedures to vent out all of the coolant, and we see what's left of the Borg Queen.
Very Terminator-esque.
Very, very. And then he somewhat violently snaps her neck. As you can see Data in the background.
Well, technically that would have been between her shoulders.
Yeah, talking about Terminator, the scene earlier, just a minute earlier, where Data was grabbing her from inside the fog, that's kind of like the lava scene in Terminator 2, but in reverse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose? I don't know.
Possibly. It would not surprise me. Now, in engineering, after everything is gone and settled, Picard asked Data, "Are you all right?"
I would imagine that I look worse than I feel.
Yeah.
Strange.
Strange. Part of me is sorry she's dead.
She was unique.
She brought me closer to humanity than I have ever thought possible. And for a time, I was tempted by her offer.
How long of a time?
0.68 seconds, sir. But for an android, that's nearly an eternity.
Just over half a second, he was tempted.
And then we get the glorious scene.
Captain's log, April 5th, 2063. The voyage of the Phoenix was a success, again. The alien ship detected the warp signature and is on its way to rendezvous with history.
And we all know what's happening then.
Out come the shotguns!
Out come the shotguns! For the people that don't know, In the Mirror Darkly Part 1 from Enterprise. Whenever I watch the scene in the movie, I pretty much expect that they're gonna shoot the Vulcans. That episode has forever ruined First Contact for me.
Yeah. But still good in both.
What I like about this scene is that the Vulcans, they knew about social distancing and no handshakes long before we did.
Wait, you mean that they have managed to craft and stick to protocols that prevent the spread of disease from alien cultures that you've only taken cursory looks at and have deemed as primitive?
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't touch them. I understand, Captain, you're going to want to lay with them, but we shouldn't touch them.
And that's how humanity ended up with cyber syphilis.
Nice. And with that, with history taking the course that it should for what they can determine is the best possible way forward to restore the timeline, up comes my major gripe. Well,
are you at the end of the movie, or are we still waiting? Because there's one series of lines in here, and this is one that normally some movies would not have done to correct something that would be an obvious what the fuck. And as soon as they get up to the bridge, the captain asks for a report, and Worf, to me, answers the question immediately: why didn't the Vulcans find us? And the moon's gravitational field obscured our warp signature. The Vulcans did not detect us. It's like, all right, off the table. We don't got to worry about that. Let's continue.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these are Vulcans of the 21st century, not the 23rd or 24th century. So detection ability is going to be in favor of the Enterprise. And with that, Picard gives his command to set course for the 24th century. So they were utilizing information received from the experience with the Borg and everything, and they correctly chart a course through the temporal vortex back to the moment that, or a moment after they departed. Problem. Why not go back to just prior to the Borg showing up, and as they are emerging from the temporal vortex, take them out right then?
Because they didn't want to violate too many temporal laws, because we saw how that worked on Deep Space Nine, and it's a pain in the ass to fill out all the paperwork.
That would have fixed the issues that they have left behind.
But it would have created a grandfather paradox.
Yeah, it would have negated the entirety of the movie. They could have done that from step one. They were trying to maintain the integrity of the timeline as much as they could.
Well, keep in mind, at first they were protected by the temporal wake, and they literally just followed the ship back. They didn't set any course or anything. They didn't create anything, so their only option was to follow them back. And as they passed through, That's when their sensors picked up everything, got overloaded, and then Data's time with the board got him the last bit of the data needed. And this is where, if you try to say that they may have gone back to the true Prime timeline. However, to say that Enterprise was Prime timeline at this point now, after what they left behind, you are lying to yourself and just trying to appease the studio and agree with them in my opinion, a nonsensical manner. The Prime timeline from this version of First Contact on is not the Prime timeline. It is its own separate offshoot, similar to the Kelvin timeline being its own continuity. Enterprise, Discovery, Picard, you are your own continuity that may have a lot of similarities to the Prime timeline, but you are not part of the Prime timeline.
Do you think, was there ever discussion, honest discussion, that this is a new timeline during the creation of this movie or subsequent series?
I'm not aware of any.
No, not officially. Because CBS keeps stamping their feet that Discovery and Picard are Prime timeline. They are part of the continuity that goes into the original series, TNG, DS9, Voyager, and after. Because they even in Picard, they even mention and reference the Hobus event, which is the one part of the divergence point for the Kelvin timeline. And that's where you can have major events that are, to steal a phrase from Doctor Who, fixed points in time, where you can meander off to the side, but still come back and have those major points that are major continuity between.
So could there now be an entirely another series of Next Generation?
There could, yes. Where the technology would advance from the Discovery, if they actually make Strange New Worlds with Pike, from that timeline and that aesthetic, they could essentially remake TNG in that aesthetic, and it would be in continuity for those as part of a divergent timeline from this movie.
There's too many damn timelines.
Temporal mechanics is always a bitch.
Yeah, I think Bjorn says it appropriately. Temporal discussions are infinite.
Oh, but he got cut off. And yeah, time travel can be a bad choice for a trope to use in sci-fi. It has to be done right. There is a lot of care to attention and care and attention to detail that has to go into it if time travel is going to be a part of it. Otherwise, like in Rick and Morty with those damn frickin' snakes, you're going to end up with an infinite loop going back on itself. Oh, Snake Hitler.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about Snake Hitler. Get in the vat of acid, Morty.
See, that is a show that tends to do things like that right.
It ridicules itself, and that's the best part.
Oh, yeah. That really is. Where, like, you had a couple meta moments here, but it was more the tongue-in-cheek, haha, look at what we said, haha, look what we did, instead of a more honest self-reflection. And yes, Bjorn says it can be done well, but it's too easy to make really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Terminator worked for a while.
Terminator worked for a while.
And then... Although
then it didn't.
See, I never was quite sure about the choice of Emilia Clarke for casting.
I don't think I've even watched the last movie yet. I don't know if I want to.
But it has Matt Smith. Oh, you know, I will give the latest addition to the Terminator franchise this. They actually showed that the machines can come up with a creative solution to the problem. I will give them that.
Yeah. Memaybe I'll watch it. I don't know.
Yeah, just
I gotta
don't
get going
expect
though, Jared.
Just don't expect too much of it. So, what are the final? I mean, we're at the end of the movie. The only thing we have left is that just like Cochrane introduced the crew of the Enterprise, well, some of the crew of the Enterprise to a particular type of music. Of course, he's going to do the same thing to the Vulcans, and they're going to be like, "What the hell?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?"
Now, final thoughts on the movie.
They rated. You go first.
It's on the top. I mean, this is one of the top, if not the top. The storyline of it, the individual characters. There's not any particular characters that I have problems with, and I love showing the flawed hero.
And also why you should never meet your heroes.
I rate the movie 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I would... To me, it's definitely up there. It is the best of the Next Generation crew movies.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree.
Head and shoulders above. It is... I would even put it into contention of the top 5. Because it really is between First Contact, 2, 4, and 6 as the top Star Trek movies, franchise-wide. Even...
Yeah, I'd actually say top 4.
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, 8. Those 4 are the best ones. Which one? That really depends.
You know... Rex there does have a point. One other problem thing, and this is where I think Star Trek is kind of kicking itself, possibly, in today's culture. This technically made Uhura as the first African descent woman in space incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Because Lily made it there before Uhura.
I think there was a time travel episode in TOS where Uhura went into the past.
In the 20s?
I think
no,
so.
No,
Yeah.
the 60s, when the entire ship went back.
Yep.
Yeah, but
during the...
that still makes her the first black African American woman in space. Then.
Yeah. Oh, there we go, Rex.
She wins on technicality.
Hey, time travel. It's a bitch.
Yeah.
With that, I remember when this movie came out, I was worried about what the Nova Project was going to release for the end result of the new Enterprise. And they nailed it. They actually did exceptionally well on a follow-on design to the Enterprise D. It could have been... It could have been screwed up in so many ways, but the way they went, it worked. And it even fit with everything else.
I think it was Tech that mentioned it a couple weeks ago on Veterans Talk, that technically the saucer section on this craft is separatable, but just once.
With that, this has been fun. We have been gone a little over, but this movie deserved it. This movie deserves all the praise and criticism that it's received. And you know what? Keep the discussion going, both in the Discord server and the comments below. Do you agree with me that this is the actual origination point of an alternate timeline that has given us Star Trek Enterprise, Discovery, and Picard? I'd be interested to hear everyone else's take on that. Perhaps a discussion for not the next episode, as we're going to open that up to more sci-fi franchises, but before we get to Insurrection, because fuck, that movie sucks.
Not the worst one.
Not the worst, but it does suck. Perhaps we can delve into that topic a bit more on the next Star Trek specific episode. But until then, everyone enjoy, have fun, be safe, and keep an eye out. Later tonight, we're actually going to have some fun here on the channel that is going to involve the channel members and patrons. Gonna have a bit of gameplay.
What are you guys doing?
We will be playing Payday 2.
Oh, nice. I haven't played Payday 2 in years, but I was super awesome at it. I have like 2,000 hours or something.
Nice.
Dang.
But yeah, so I'm gonna take some time, get something to eat, relax for a few, and then I'll be back online in a couple hours with a couple of the channel members and patrons, whoever's available and wants to join in. And for those who want to join in on the fun and are a channel member but don't have the game via Steam yet, let me know. We have a couple game keys available for you.
The best mission by a long shot is Shadow Raid.
Well,
if you stealth it properly, it works nicely.
Well, we will definitely look into that. Until then, everyone enjoy, be safe out there, and we will catch you all later.
Later, everyone.
Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.